They won't always improve. Sometimes you'll go backwards, sometimes you'll go forwards. And that's perfectly fine. As long as you end up going forwards in the end, whether that be in 2 months or 2 years or 2 decades, you're still going to get better. Things don't stay that awful forever. And that's what I needed to hear when I was really struggling. My mental health was not in the best of places at all. I was struggling a lot with self-harm, with suicidal thoughts. I was struggling a lot within myself.
I'm Roz, and I'm Abbie's mum. She used to attend group, and now she's here helping out.
Well, I started self-harming as a way to cope with my overwhelming thoughts. I wasn't getting treatment for my autism. I wasn't getting like the sort of support or help that I needed or deserved, and I was just left to fend for myself. I was 13, just gone 14, when basically nothing was going my way, and I was really struggling. I had attempted to commit suicide a few times within that point then to now. I have attempted several times. I've been hospitalised over 10 times, and I was very nearly sent to a psychiatric intensive care unit.
As a parent, it's difficult to admit to yourself that your child's struggling. You know, you have a child and you plan things out, and you don't plan for if things don't go the way you plan them to be. You know, you think, oh, my child's going to get ill, they're going to get chicken pox, that's normal, that, you know, they get ill, they recover. However, you don't plan for mental health problems, you don't plan for ASD. You know, when you plan to have children, that's not a consideration you ever think about. It almost smacks you in the face that actually my child's not well, my child's struggling. As a parent, that's really hard, and it's hard to first admit it and then to know where to get help from.
I did feel really hopeless. I felt like no one can do anything to save me. I'm beyond saving. No therapy is going to help me. No amount of medication or cocktail of drugs are going to help me. I was completely hopeless. I felt hopeless, helpless. I felt like I was a lost cause and that I was just taking up an unneeded space in CAMS. I was taking up resources, and I just felt like if I died, then I'd be helping someone else get that help that they need because they aren't a lost cause. I call it an addiction to self-harm, but it was more of just habit and routine and stability. Like, it was the only stability that I had in my life, was controlling my cuts, how many there were, how deep they are. People only took me seriously if I went to the hospital or if I had visible wounds or scarring, but no one takes into account the mental wounds or the mental scarring. No one listens to that, and it's just so aggravating.
Professionals met one child with autism, they've read some books, and yes, they do have an understanding, but being a parent's different. You know, your house is different, it's not a perfect environment. You haven't got all these sensory toys and sensory equipment to deal with anxiety. You haven't got the ability to lock all medications away and lock all things that could harm somebody away. You're not a sterile environment, it's a home, and it's difficult for a professional to say you need to do this and you need to do that, and when you can't do it you feel like you're a failure. What a professional needs is more exposure to parents.
I wrote this sat on my bed crying. I distinctly remember that. And I wrote, she sits in her room, slumped on that chair, with emotions as red as her hair. She's not in this world, she's trapped in her mind. It might sound very cliche, but everyone she knows is blind. In the dead of the night, she stares at her phone screen, not noticing a single thing, apart from the fact her arms are oh so clean. She's zoned out again, out of her mind. It's getting to the point that even she's becoming blind. Help? What a pitiful word. That's what you do when you're weak. Though I feel as if I'm drowning and I can't even speak. My arms are scabbed and numb, though I don't notice, for I am now blind. I can't see the damage I've done, for I now hide in my mind. Forget about me, I'm better off dead, she writes on a final note. She cocks the gun, aims at her head, and all that's left now is her bloody throat. But little did she know, small would care, wonder why. Because when one person commits suicide, 2 people die. I wrote that just after I'd cut myself as well.
And you felt it's not going to get better. What kept you going?
Abbie. You know, she's my daughter. You do anything for your kids.
And, yeah, it's okay. And you did? You want a minute? Yeah.
My mum actually, she got an email from, I don't know who, I think it was Cami or something from the IST.
Abbie was going through a particularly dark time in her life, and we had intensive support. We're involved, heavily involved with our lives, and it was mentioned from there that this group was going to be happening, and did I want to come along, and would Abbie be interested? And we had nothing to lose, so we said okay then, and we turned up.
I went around this time last year, so March 2019, and I found it quite useful. I've come back to help.
I think the hardest part was to actually get Abbie to attend. She felt hopeless, that she wasn't worth it. I think the difficulty was the first time was get her to come in, to get her into the car, to get her out of bed, to be motivated, I think was possibly the difficult. By the second session and the third session, and as it went on, it got easier and easier and easier. And actually she was quite upset at the end when it ended. I think she would have liked to have just continued.
It was rather daunting to begin with. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't really know how to engage, but the group itself taught me how to engage in a group. So I found it really useful, actually. At the time, I didn't really think much about it, but now that I'm sat here in this chair, I'm thinking this group did actually help me. It taught me stuff that I use still to this day.
I think the most helpful was probably the system. The system's so difficult to get your head round as a parent. Where do you get the help from? Who helps you with this? Who helps you with that? I think the biggest thing I got was that actually we needed a social worker, that to admit that actually we needed that help, and it isn't a bad thing, it's a good thing.
Like, I began to get along with some of the girls there, and we all added each other on social media, and we had like a group chat.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we came along to the group. Abbie got so much out of it, and it wasn't just the things that were being taught. She realised that actually she is accepted. There is other people out there that are struggling just like she is. You know, different ways, but are still struggling. And it gave me the ability to sit with other parents and say, actually, this is the struggles that I'm having, and realising for myself that actually I'm not alone either. I need to look after myself to be able to look after her, and that group made me realise that needs to happen.
Reading that, it doesn't even feel like I wrote it. I got chills reading it, as if it wasn't me who wrote it, but I remember writing it. I remember being stuck for words halfway through. I remember not knowing how to rhyme certain things. I remember sitting there and thinking, wow, I'm so useless, I can't even put down a bunch of words. But now I look at it and I think, I thought nothing of this 2.5 years ago. You can infer so much from it. You can take so much from it. You can analyze it, and you can see how I was feeling in that moment of time. I spent a good 1.5 hours writing that, and that is not even me anymore. I am a completely different person. I see hope for the future. I see hope, and I have ambitions.
What ambitions do you have?
I want to go into the sciences, either to become an astrophysicist or a pharmaceutical scientist.